What if I told you that in a real crisis, when supply chains break, prices spike, or fresh food disappears, you could still grow some of the most nutrient-dense food on Earth, right on your kitchen counter, in less than a week? Most people don't realize this, but some of the foods that helped people survive wars, famines, and hard winters don't grow in fields. They grow in jars, quietly, cheaply, almost effortlessly. Before we dive in, tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? And what's the #1 food you wish you could grow at home? In this video, I'm going to walk you through powerful, forgotten micro-survival foods, sprouts you can grow with almost no space, no garden, and no heavy labor. Perfect if your back hurts, your time is limited, or you just want real food security without complicated systems. By the end, you'll know which sprouts give you serious nutrition in just a few days, which ones can actually replace parts of your meals, and which one, the one I'll reveal near the end, is so powerful and tricky that most people never even attempt it. But those who do unlock something truly special. And here's the truth most people don't want to hear. Your food system is fragile, but your ability to grow food doesn't have to be. Right now, food prices are rising in many parts of the world. Supply chains are unpredictable, and for a lot of people, especially as we get older, the idea of digging, bending, lifting, and maintaining a full garden just isn't realistic anymore. But here's something almost no one talks about. During difficult times, wars, economic collapse, even long winters, people didn't just rely on stored food. They relied on fast-growing, living food. Things they could grow indoors. Things that didn't need land. There are stories from different parts of the world where families kept jars near windows, quietly growing fresh food in the middle of scarcity. Not for luxury, but for survival. And this is where most modern gardeners get it wrong. They think food security means bigger gardens, more land, more effort. But sometimes it actually means smaller systems, smarter systems that work even when you're tired. In a moment, I'm going to show you one of the easiest sprouts you can grow. Something so simple that even if you've never grown anything in your life, you can succeed on your first try. And later, I'll show you the one sprout that grows faster than almost anything else, and another that can actually feel like a full meal, not just a garnish. Because once you understand this, you stop thinking of sprouts as health food, and you start seeing them for what they really are: a backup food system, hiding in plain sight. Let's start with something that might completely change how you think about food. Because this is not just a garnish, not just something you sprinkle on top. This is one of the most studied, most powerful sprouts you can grow at home. Broccoli sprouts. Now here's what makes them so surprising. When broccoli is just a tiny sprout, only a few days old, it contains extremely high levels of a compound called sulforaphane. This compound has been studied for its role in supporting the body's natural detox systems and reducing inflammation. Some research has explored its potential in disease prevention. But to be clear, this is still an area of ongoing research, not a cure or medical treatment. What matters for you is this. You can grow this at home in about 3 to 5 days. Here's how simple it is. You take seeds labeled specifically for sprouting. That part matters for safety, and soak them in water overnight. The next day, you drain them, rinse them, and leave them in a jar tilted upside down so water can drain and air can circulate. Then you rinse them twice a day. That's it. No soil, no digging, no sunlight needed at first. Just a jar, water, and a little consistency. Within a few days, you'll see tiny green leaves forming. Give them a little indirect light at the end, and they're ready to eat. And here's the part most people underestimate. A small jar can produce a surprising amount of food. Enough to add to sandwiches, mix into meals, or even eat by the handful. For someone who can't maintain a full garden, this is not a small thing. This is control. And if you stay with me, the next one I'm about to show you might be even more practical, because it doesn't just add nutrition, it can actually fill you up. Now imagine this. You open your kitchen cabinet, take out something you already have. No special seeds, no expensive setup, and in just a few days, you've turned it into a fresh, living food that's easier for your body to digest. That's lentil sprouts. If you've never grown anything before, this is where I would tell you to start. Not because it's trendy, but because it's almost impossible to mess up. You can use regular whole lentils from your grocery store. Green, brown, most of them will sprout as long as they're not split. You soak them overnight, drain them, and then rinse them twice a day. Within 2 to 4 days, you'll see tiny white tails emerging. That's when they're ready. And here's what's important to understand. When lentils sprout, something changes. Compounds that normally make them harder to digest begin to break down. Your body can absorb nutrients more easily, and the texture becomes softer, fresher, almost alive in a way cooked food isn't. But let me be clear about safety. Like all raw sprouts, hygiene matters. Always rinse thoroughly. Use clean containers. And if something smells off or looks slimy, don't eat it. People with weakened immune systems should be cautious with raw sprouts and may prefer lightly cooking them. Now here's why lentil sprouts matter for survival gardening. They're not just a topping, they're food. You can toss them into salads, stir them into warm dishes, or even build a simple meal around them with a bit of oil, salt, and lemon. Cheap, fast, filling. And for many people, that's the difference between growing extra greens and actually feeding yourself. Stick with me, because next, we're going to look at a sprout you've probably already eaten without realizing it. And it might be the easiest way to replace something you're currently buying every week. You've probably eaten this next one in a restaurant, maybe in noodles, maybe in a soup, maybe without even thinking about it. Mung bean sprouts. They're everywhere. And yet almost no one realizes how incredibly easy and cheap they are to grow at home. Here's the surprising part. The crisp, fresh sprouts you pay for at the store can be grown in your kitchen in about 3 to 5 days for a fraction of the cost. And once you start, it's very hard to go back to buying them. You take whole mung beans, not split. Soak them overnight, then drain and rinse them. After that, it's the same rhythm. Rinse twice a day, keep them well drained, and let them sit in a jar or container where air can circulate. And something almost magical happens. Day by day, they expand, they stretch, they turn into those thick, crunchy sprouts you recognize from your favorite dishes. But there's one small detail that matters more than anything else here: moist, but not wet. If water sits at the bottom, they can rot, so always let them drain fully. That simple habit is the difference between success and failure. Now think about what this means. Instead of depending on store-bought vegetables that may not always be available, you have a steady supply of fresh, crunchy food growing in your kitchen every single week. No soil, no weather, no waiting months. And if you're starting to see the pattern here, good, because the next sprout I'm about to show you flips the script completely. It's not about bulk. It's about flavor. Now let's talk about something most survival food advice completely ignores: taste. Because here's the truth: if your food doesn't taste good, you won't keep eating it. And if you don't keep eating it, it doesn't matter how nutritious it is. That's where radish sprouts come in. These are small, delicate, but don't let that fool you. They carry a sharp, peppery flavor, almost like a mild wasabi or fresh radish, that can completely transform a simple meal. A plain sandwich suddenly has bite. A boring salad suddenly has character. And just like the others, they're incredibly easy to grow. You soak the seeds for a few hours, rinse them, and then follow the same twice-a-day rinse cycle. In about 3 to 5 days, you'll have thin sprouts with tiny leaves and a surprising kick. But here's something important to understand: the flavor changes over time. Harvest them early and they're mild. Let them grow longer and the heat builds. So you can actually control the intensity just by choosing when to eat them. Now, there's also a deeper reason people have valued these kinds of plants. Radish and other similar sprouts contain natural compounds, the same family found in other cruciferous vegetables, that have been studied for their role in supporting the body's natural defense systems. Again, not medicine, but food that supports your body in real ways. And that's the pattern you're starting to see across all of these. Small effort, real impact. If this is helping you rethink how you grow food, take a second and tap like. It helps more people discover that they don't need a big garden to start feeding themselves. Now stay with me, because next, we're going to talk about one of the oldest, most trusted sprouts of all time, the one that quietly started an entire health movement, and why it's still one of the best places to begin. There's a reason this next sprout has been around for generations, quietly sitting in sandwiches, health food stores, and home kitchens. Alfalfa sprouts. For many people, this was the very first health food they ever saw. Light, soft, almost delicate, and easy enough that even someone with zero experience could grow it successfully. But here's what makes alfalfa so powerful. It's not overwhelming. Some sprouts are strong, bitter, spicy, but alfalfa is gentle. It blends into almost anything, which means you'll actually use it. And consistency is what makes a difference over time. Growing it is simple. The seeds are tiny, so you only need a small amount. Soak them for a few hours, rinse, and keep them in a jar with good airflow. Rinse twice a day, and within 4 to 6 days, you'll have a full jar of soft, green sprouts. But there's something almost surprising the first time you grow it. How much it expands. A single spoon of seeds turns into a large volume of food. Enough to pile onto sandwiches, wraps, or mix into meals for several days. And for someone thinking about long-term food security, that matters, because you're not just growing food, you're multiplying it. Now, a quick safety note. Like all raw sprouts, cleanliness is important. Always use clean water, rinse properly, and store them in the fridge once they're ready. If anything smells unusual or looks spoiled, don't take the risk. Now here's something interesting. Even though alfalfa is often seen as basic, the next sprout takes that same idea and quietly upgrades it. More nutrients, slightly deeper flavor, same level of simplicity. If you like the idea of alfalfa, but want something just a little more powerful, this is where clover sprouts come in. At first glance, they look almost identical. Light, thin, delicate. You might not even notice the difference. But under the surface, they're doing more. Clover sprouts contain naturally occurring plant compounds that researchers have studied for their potential role in hormonal balance. This doesn't mean they're a treatment or a cure, but it does mean they're part of a long tradition of using plants as supportive foods. And that's something our grandparents understood well. Food wasn't just about filling the stomach. It was about supporting the body, day after day, in small, consistent ways. Growing clover sprouts is almost exactly the same as alfalfa. Soak the seeds, rinse them twice daily, give them a few days to grow, and finish them with a bit of indirect light to bring out their green color. The result is a slightly earthier taste, still mild, still easy to eat, but just a bit more depth. And here's a simple trick many experienced growers use. They mix sprouts, half alfalfa, half clover, sometimes adding a little radish for bite. Suddenly, you're not just growing one thing, you're creating a balanced, living food blend. And once you start doing that, your kitchen changes. You stop thinking in terms of single ingredients and start thinking in systems. Small jars, working together, producing fresh food every few days. Now stay with me, because in the next part, we're going to shift gears. We're moving from light, delicate sprouts to something much more substantial. Something that can actually feel like a real meal. And after that, we'll get closer to the one I promised you at the beginning. The one most people never even try. Now let's move into something different. Because up to this point, most of what we've talked about has been light, fresh, and easy to add to meals. But what if you want something that actually feels like food? Something that fills you up. Something you can build a meal around. Something that gives you real staying power. That's where chickpea sprouts come in. This is where sprouting stops feeling like a side habit and starts feeling like a serious food system. You take dried chickpeas, the same ones sitting in your kitchen right now, and soak them for a longer time, usually around 12 to 16 hours. They swell, almost doubling in size. Then you drain them, rinse them, and continue rinsing a couple of times a day. Within 2 to 4 days, small white tails begin to appear. That's your signal. At this stage, they're mild, slightly nutty, and much easier for many people to digest compared to unsprouted chickpeas. Sprouting begins to break down some of the compounds that can cause bloating. But here's something important to understand. Because chickpeas are larger, they need more attention. They can heat up, ferment, or spoil if left too wet or not rinsed properly. So give them space, rinse them well, and don't overcrowd them. And just like before, trust your senses. If something smells off, don't eat it. Now here's where it gets interesting. You don't have to eat them raw. You can lightly cook them, toss them into warm dishes, or even roast them for a crunchy snack. That flexibility makes them incredibly practical, especially for people who are cautious about raw foods. And this is where sprouting becomes powerful. You're not just growing greens, you're transforming staple foods into something fresher, faster, and often easier on your body. But now, we've reached the final stretch. Because the next one, the one I hinted at in the beginning, is different from everything else we've talked about. It's harder. It's more technical. And most people give up before they ever get it right. But if you do, you unlock something very few home growers ever experience. All right, this is the one most people skip. Not because it isn't powerful, but because it asks a little more from you. Flax sprouts. Now let's be honest right from the start. These are not beginner-friendly. If you try to grow them the same way you grow other sprouts, you'll probably think you've done something wrong. Because the moment flax seeds get wet, they turn into gel, thick, sticky, almost slimy. And for a lot of people, that's where they stop. But here's the truth. That gel is natural. It's part of what makes flax unique. And inside those tiny seeds are omega-3 fatty acids, nutrients that many people try to get from expensive supplements. Again, not a miracle cure, but a well-studied part of a healthy diet. Now, growing them requires a different approach. You don't rinse and drain like other sprouts. Instead, you spread them in a very thin layer, almost single file, in a tray or shallow dish. Then you gently mist them with water, just enough to keep them moist without flooding them. Too much water, and that gel becomes overwhelming. Too little, and they dry out. So this becomes a balance, patience, observation, adjustment. Within 4 to 6 days, small sprouts begin to push through. At that point, you can harvest them, rinse them gently to remove excess gel, and use them in your food. Mild, nutty, subtle. But here's why this matters. If you can grow this, you've gone beyond basic gardening. You've learned how to adapt. And that's the real skill. Because in any uncertain situation, whether it's rising prices, limited access to fresh food, or just the reality of aging bodies, adaptability is what keeps you going. Now let's bring this all together. If you forget everything else from this video, remember this. You don't need a big garden to start feeding yourself. You need small systems that work consistently. A jar, some seeds, a few minutes a day. That's it. Start simple. Try lentils. Try broccoli sprouts. Build confidence. Then expand. You don't have to do everything at once. Just start. And here's your first step. Today, take one food you already have at home, lentils, chickpeas, mung beans, and try sprouting it. One jar. One experiment. That's how this begins. If this opened your eyes even a little, hit like so more people can discover this. Subscribe if you want more real, practical ways to grow your own food without needing acres of land. And tell me in the comments, which one are you going to try first? And where are you watching from? Also, if you want me to go deeper into hidden edible weeds or survival plants you can grow once and halve, Saint for years, comment survival, because that might be the next video. And trust me, you'll never look at your kitchen the same way again.